Aloha, welcome to the Fast, Healthy, and Ono Cooking trip around the world. My name is Cindy, and I'm an AARP Hawaii volunteer. I'll be your host tonight. We will be traveling to Korea for a demonstration of how to make meat jun. This dish was brought to America via kaniohi, according to Wikipedia, and is a popular entree and side item. On behalf of our sponsors, Kaunoa Senior Services on Maui, Uala Leaf Cafe at Windward Community College, and AARP Hawaii, welcome. Okay, having problems. Oh, there we go. Okay. For those of you who are new or may be unfamiliar with AARP Hawaii, we are a membership organization for people 50 and older, but what we do for everyone. We hope that with this series, you can learn some techniques that you can use to build or maintain a healthy lifestyle. Let's do a quick bit of housekeeping. This is a picture of what you should be seeing at the bottom of your Zoom screen on a PC and Mac, and possibly the top of the screen on an iPad. Everybody is currently on mute. If you want to submit a question or comment, please click on the button that says Q&A and type in your question. I will be monitoring the questions and making sure they get asked. If you're watching on Facebook Live, you may type your questions in the comments. The chat command also isn't necessarily going to be needed unless you want to communicate a technical issue and for participant interaction. Alice Swift, Dave DeWitt, and Jackie Bolin are standing by to help. So please make sure you use the Q&A for questions and comments. We recommend that you select speaker side-by-side view rather than gallery view for this presentation. Do this by clicking on the upper right part of your screen where it says view. Once you're in that view, you can change the size of the slides or of the speaker simply by clicking and dragging on the middle bar. Finally, we have added closed captioning to this presentation for those who have difficulty hearing. You can turn this off on your end by clicking on the CC Live Transcript button in the lower right side of your screen and clicking on Hide Subtitle. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Chef Daniel Swift, who will be leading us through this cooking series. Take it away, Chef Dan.
Perfect. Okay, can you see me? And hear me, everything? I almost forgot my mouse. It was over here. Let me put that aside. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks again for joining us tonight. We're doing meat jun, as Cindy said, and the origins are on Wikipedia as far as Hawaii's role in that. Sometimes you never really know exactly where these things come from. But what I wanted to focus on tonight, as I tend to always do, is sort of the technique and the approach to this, because it doesn't even necessarily have to be beef. So it can be used, this technique can be used with other cuts of meat than it is throughout the world. So we'll talk about that a little bit as we get going. But we're doing the teriyaki, basically marinated beef that will be then egg battered, floured, and then egg battered, and just slightly pan fried. I should have grabbed the egg beaters, but I had whole eggs. I wasn't thinking when I wrote this recipe. I did want to talk to you first, though, about a couple differences. I apologize if this is a little small. I'll hold it up here. Hopefully you guys can read it. But can you read it? Okay. We're using two different types of chilies. Are very popular in Korean cooking. You've got the gochugaru, which is the chili pepper flakes, and I'll show you that. We're going to be using that in our marinade, actually. They add a little bit of heat. It's a little bit spicy, not too hot, but it does have a little bit of heat there, and it adds that smokiness, almost like a smoked paprika in a way, but it's not ground quite as fine. There's different brands and different approaches to that. And then you have the gochujang, which is more of the paste. So it's a chili pepper paste that provides a little bit more on the side of sweetness, a little bit tanginess, higher acidity, and maybe a little bit of spicy flavor, not too bad in that regard. But you can find most of those in the supermarket. Here's the two that I have tonight. We have Chef Steve, who's out there somewhere. Had a large tub of the dried ground peppers that were given to him by a friend who brought him back from Korea. And then he makes his own paste with those. So we have the two different kinds today. So the dry one, as I mentioned, will go in to the marinade. And I set up a little side dish here of kind of a quick kimchi if we have time. I think we probably will, to bang that out and just kind of go through, I guess, a shortened version of it. So it's almost like pickling in the sense that you can go with a long pickling process for items that you might want to pickle, and we've done pickling on the show before. Or there's a quick pickling method that can get you pickles within a couple hours. We're going to do the same with kimchi. I'm going to use some different ingredients for that, but it won't be fermented. It won't go through the nice long process. It won't develop the umami, but I always encourage people to do techniques like that with things on the fresh side as well, because you can create a nice, wonderful side dish without having to invest the time and the storage space and everything required in your refrigerator at home. So if you have questions as we go through the process, feel free to let me know. For the beef that we're using tonight, I have some already marinated, and that was actually boneless Colby ribs that were pounded. So I have like three different kinds of meat tonight. This is some premium choice. So the choice is the third selection in USDA grading. You may have tuned into Chef Dale's classes. I guess that was 4th of July-ish 2 years ago. But prime is our #1 grade of beef in the United States, high marbling and all of that stuff, the highest quality. And then you have choice, and then you have select. So I apologize, this is choice. This is the second tier. Select is your next tier down. So we only deal with cuts that are in those 3 categories. They do have the breakdown. So you'll see like this one is a certified Angus premium choice. You've got Rancher's Reserve. A lot of your supermarkets have sort of developed their own sort of grading system in the sense that they're getting choice or they're getting select, but they're getting like the top 10% of that particular category and then branding it as their own sort of version of a grading system. But we're really looking at prime, choice, and select as the 3 main categories that we would look at in industry, and probably for the ones at home. Below that, you start getting into the meats that are put into like canned stews. Canner cutter is an actual specification. So we'd stay away from that when we're dealing with stuff in the kitchen. So this one is cut just certified Angus beef. It's boneless. It's a ribeye that's used for shabu shabu. This is really thin. It's something that we had for another dish, but I just wanted to show you the possibility. You certainly could use this, but it is really thin, and you would have to cook it extremely quickly. We're not going to use this one tonight. We're going to focus on the one that we got last night. This is a choice as well. It was $15.51 for this packet, and it's about $11.50 a pound, which is on the higher side. But if you've been shopping for meat, you know that the prices have gone up, actually in about 40%. But you can use ribeye. You can use this is top round. You could use bottom round. You could use sirloin. Almost any cut is suitable for this technique because it's cut thin and it's usually pounded flat. And what that does is sort of tenderizes it for you. The marinade that we're going to make also tenderizes it a little bit. And then the quick cooking oftentimes leaves it on the medium to medium rare side, depending on how long you leave it in the pan. So you can take what's traditionally a little bit tougher cut and make it a bit more tender. So I'll show you that process of pounding that out. But you may have different options or preferences at home for the type of meat that you use, and certified Angus and only prime or dry aged, but you can get upwards of $25 a pound when you start getting into the top tier of meat, sometimes even more if it's dry aged. So we don't use that here, and I don't use it at home either, but I run across it occasionally. So what I always recommend, I'm going to pound these out a little bit. They're pretty thin already, and you can cut your own if you're buying like a sirloin roast or something, or New York strip or whatever. You can pound it out after you've sliced it yourself, but I just bought the convenience product last night when we were at the store. We just picked that up at Safeway. But what I always recommend you do is take plastic wrap anytime you're pounding chicken or meat or anything like that in the home. What we do is we'll take our, these are, you can see are already probably a 1/4 inch thick. I could actually use that about like that if I wanted to. But I lay it on plastic. So I've laid out a sheet of plastic wrap. I'm going to put just 2 pieces down. That's all I need to demonstrate. And you'll notice that the plastic wrap's extended beyond that. So I always pull it over and then that covers it up. So when you're pounding it out, and this is your standard meat mallet, you may have one at home that's a little bit smaller, or you don't have to have one of these. You can use anything that's sort of solid and heavy, the back of a small saute pan. But this is your best bet if you're tenderizing on a regular basis, because it has a flat side on two portions of it, and then it has 2 different grades of spikes basically coming out of it. One of the smaller ones, and then one of the little bit larger ones. Larger one would be dealt with larger cuts of meat that you're pounding out. Tonight, we're just going to use the smaller spikes to just lightly expand this and pound it out. Probably, another 1/3 of the size that it actually is. So that's just done by simply, pardon the noise, hitting it like that. And what that does is basically what we're calling mechanically tenderizing it. So we're manually beating the fibers that are in the meat so that they are spread out, broken up, and it makes for a tender cut or a more tender cut.
And this is Jackie. I have a question about that. Can you pound it too hard? What happens if you pound it too hard?
You go through and you have a puka. So you'll see here, and notice the plastic wrap, it almost does protect the meat a little bit. I mean, I'm still going to wash that mallet, but it didn't come into contact with the meat at all, especially if you're doing chicken, which is more higher potential for spreading bacteria around the kitchen. If you're doing it without plastic, little pieces of meat tend to fly all over. So this keeps it all enclosed. But if you do happen to pound it so hard that it goes through, it's not gonna ruin it. But you can see that this just pounded it out a little bit larger. And I can see actually, not daylight, but I can see light through one edge right there, a row of about 4 spikes. So, it won't matter. It won't make a difference for what we're doing. So don't fear. You'll just have, like I said, that hole in there, and that means the egg batter will go through it or whatever, but it'll still work out just fine.
I have a question from Carla.
Go ahead.
She wants to know, can she use a regular mallet because she doesn't have one with spikes?
Yeah, absolutely. You could use a hammer. I mean, if you want to, go to the toolbox and see what you got. A pair of, a regular hammer, a rubber mallet. Actually, it might even be less expensive to get yourself a rubber mallet at the hardware store than it would be to buy a meat mallet. I don't know if there's still a price tag on this one. Steve let me borrow it, but they're probably about $18. This is a little flimsier than they used to be. Everything's gotten lighter and a lower grade of aluminum and a lighter handle. But yeah, anything you find would work fine.
Okay, I have a question about the meat.
Yep, go ahead.
Is the meat the teriyaki cut?
You could. The one that I had before, I put it away already, but that was a teriyaki one. So you could skip the process of the marinade if you already buy the one that's teriyaki marinated. So you'd be ahead of the curve. Great question. But we'll make that marinade super simple. I've got my low sodium shoyu. I've got my water. And if you happen to just use regular shoyu at home, that's fine. I tend to water it down. Like anytime you see me use shoyu, I'm almost always watering it down to reduce that sodium that's going into the product. But if you get low sodium, just taste it, make those adjustments as you feel are necessary. The other ingredients I have a little bit of monk fruit sugar, a little bit of garlic, and then the dried chilies. And I didn't have the ginger paste on the recipe, but I saw some that Steve was working with today. So I grabbed a little pinch of it and I'm going to throw that in. So you can feel free to be a little creative if you need to be when you're making your marinade, but you're always going to want shoyu. the chilies, and a little bit of sweetness from the sugar. You don't need salt. And if you wanted to put in ginger or crushed or grated lemongrass, like we worked with not too long ago, anything you want, just feel free to get creative. And this just needs to be mixed up. That dissolves the monk fruit sugar, and then in goes our beef for marinade. And I would recommend, I mean, at least 30 minutes or so. Anything teriyaki, I tend to not leave in overnight. It can just overpower it. If you leave it in that long or any longer, then it can just, especially with chicken and the lighter proteins, it can really affect and impact the color of the product and sometimes the texture as well. So I'll just set this aside. And then once that's done, you just want to take it out and dry it really well. So here I pulled out ones, and this was our Colby ribs, cut the bone off and marinated them. So these are ready to go. I dried them really nicely. I discarded the marinade in this case just because I didn't need it. But as we've said before, you can, if you're using and making large quantities of marinade and you're soaking meats in them, you can then put them in a saucepan, bring them to a boil, skim the foam off the top, cool them down, and then use them for sauces or other things. So you don't have to just throw away that 1.5 cups of marinade that you made because it had meat in it. You can utilize it, but you do have to kill the bacteria by boiling it, or any of the blood and things that are inside of it. So just be aware of that. All right. And then I have, I'm just heating up my pan lightly. And then here are my eggs, and I should have used egg beaters, thinking about it now. 99% egg white in an egg beater and 1% color and other things. And they taste and work almost exactly like a regular whole egg. So you're eliminating that cholesterol. Of course, you're eliminating the fat as well. A little bit of the flavor, but you're in a dish like this, you're really not going to notice the difference.
Okay, I have questions about monk sugar.
Yep.
Marcy wants to know, what is it? And Linda wants to know, where do you get it?
You can get it at most supermarkets now. They have it in the, I don't know if they call it the healthy section. Depends on where you're at. If you're at a Whole Foods type store, every section seems to be the healthy section. But most of your supermarkets are going to have it, probably not in the baking section, but in the section where they have like alternative gluten-free items and things like that. Just ask your retailer. And it's a sugar substitute from monk fruit, and it's a 1-to-1 ratio. I don't have the bag with me. I'm sorry, it's over there. But take a look online, and it's a great substitute for sugar if you're looking to reduce your carbs and your sugar intake. So we've got that there. Great question. I've got my flour. So whenever I'm doing egg and flour, I didn't put it on the recipe, but I have a little bit of our seasoning here. It's got a touch of salt, but a little bit of pepper as well, and the mamaki and the items that we tend to use. So we're making this a little bit our own. But I will always recommend that you season your egg and your flour anytime you're breading. So this is a little unique in our breading process in that we're going flour so that the egg will stick to the wet meat, and then we're going into the pan, whereas more often than not, you're going from the wet meat to the flour to the egg and into a panko or a breadcrumb, a cracker crumb, or something that then provides us with the crust that we like oftentimes in our crispy style deep fried items. But this process basically just skips that breading, and we end up with just the egg batter, right? So I'll get a pair of tongs. Should work for that. It'll mix that up. And I'll just do a couple. This seems to be, heat is the tricky part on this. So I'm going to get a couple of these breaded. Oh, wrong way. See? Look at that. I'm thinking of something else. A little bit of flour. And then that'll be ready to go into the egg. Now you don't want a bunch of flour clumped on there. So we do try to make sure that it's spread out flat. We make sure that it is coated with flour, but before we go into the egg, we'll shake it off, make sure that there's not just big clods of flour on there. I'll do a couple, maybe 3. Might be able to get 4 into this pan. Usually doing this with my hand, so we'll see. It should work all right. So, tongs. And if you're doing chicken this style, the best fried chicken I ever had was buttermilk and flour. So seasoned flour, where the chicken goes into that, and then it goes into buttermilk, and then back into the flour, and then into the pan. That was a really popular dish at a country club that I worked at years and years ago, and we still make that to this day. So these combinations of flour and egg and breadcrumbs or cracker crumbs or whatever, you can literally just make dozens and dozens of dishes with that technique and mixing it up. And you may have had a fried shrimp or something where you get it and it's really big, and then you bite into it and there's a tiny shrimp inside. It's really just the process of going through the breading twice. Usually not 3 times, it gets too much, but it'll build up a layer of more breading and it makes the product look bigger, but inside you still have the small kind shrimp. So I'm gonna leave this on. I'm gonna put a little bit of oil in the pan, not a lot, basically a pan fry, but we're trying to stay fat, away from fat as much as we can. And that's got just a little bit of salad oil. We're using Wesson oil. And then hopefully I can do this with tongs. It's easier by hand, but we'll see how it goes. And let this run off. Are there any other questions at the moment?
Yes, Janice wants to know if she uses regular sugar rather than the monk. Does she have to change the amount that she uses?
Nope. Same ratio, I would say, for that. It's designed to be 1-to-1. Great question, Janice. I'm going to turn that up a little bit. I'd like to hear it sear and fry. So a little tricky with these small burners at home, but you want a nice medium heat, maybe medium to medium high, but you don't want it splattering all over the place. So I'm going to let these heat up before I add the next one. And I'm going to pull over the tray for our dipping sauce, which is really simple. And in that we've got similar items, but we have the low sodium soy sauce, the water as well. We've got some sesame oil. We've got the paste of the Korean pepper and some mirin, I think is what I have, or rice wine vinegar is what I have here. And now you can start to hear that crackle and fizzle a little bit. And that's what we're looking for. So that pan was a little on the colder side. And what you can do when you're trying to test the temperature of your pan is just take a small piece and drizzle some of the egg inside and take a look at that. And if it's popping and sizzling, like I think you might be able to hear it now, that's what you're looking for.
Okay, I have a question from Suzanne. What
Yep.
did you season the flour with?
Hey, Suzanne. That is our seasoning blend. It's just some salt, some pepper, some kanei, or uala leaf seasoning. We were just talking about that. I'm sorry, we're not open and it's not available, but we may end up with doing a class on spices, making spice blends and making them available to the public again. So we're waiting to see. It's finals week this week for those of you who know kids in school, and or next week, and we'll be evaluating what we're going to do here with the cafe in the fall after summer's over. You never know these days. We're trying to get back to normal. Okay, so I turned it up high just to bring that heat up, and now I want to turn it down. One area is done. I like a lot of egg on mine. It would be a little difficult to double batter it. I don't really want to do that. I'm just trying to keep as much egg on it as I drop it into the oil.
I have a question from Sandra.
Yep.
She says, when I make meat jun, the coating doesn't stay stuck to the meat like at Korean restaurants. So when I slice the meat before serving it, the breading gets loose. Any secret to keeping the meat and breading stuck together?
I've got it from plenty of restaurants where it's falling off as well. I think if you just have your meat nice and dry, before you flour it, then you're going to create a layer of flour on the meat, and the egg will stick to the flour. So the trick is really to make sure that you get that layer, get your meat dry or your chicken, whatever it is you're making, get it dry, and then hit it in the flour so it's extra dry and that flour is stuffed. And then once it goes into the egg will stick for sure. But you're dealing with a moist thing, moist protein. So, there's always the chance that can come off. You just have to sort of watch it. The drier you keep it, the better off you're going to be. And you can see I got a couple pieces done there. These are getting close. And you'll notice it does absorb that oil. So we want to try to, minimize the oil. You could use a spray probably with a really good nonstick pan, and it would work. It wouldn't be exactly the same, but you're going to cut down on a lot of the fat that you would get with a little pan sear with a touch more oil in it. So we're just going to add these ingredients together. The shoyu, like I said, the water, rice vinegar, chili paste. And you could, again, get creative. If you wanted to throw green onions in this dipping sauce, or you have some other item that's one of your favorites, feel free to do that. Totally up to you. Keep an eye on your beef. Some people like it darker. Some people like it a little bit lighter. That's about what I'm looking for right there. I'm going to take that out. And then always have a tray with paper towels ready so that you can take off that excess oil. You could even have an extra paper towel if you wanted to. I can pull one of these out from underneath, and I can lay it on top and just lightly tap it. And that'll absorb some of that extra oil as well. And every little step like that you can do will help you out, because it's going to take that little bit of extra oil out of the way. And then I just need to mix this together.
Okay, Terry is saying that she would love a class on spice blends, especially your Mamaki spice blend. Any plans to share the secret recipe with us?
Oh, it's no secret. We just never make anything twice. It's whatever we have. So if you got any of our spices, they're almost always one of a kind. And we've done some spices, but yeah, I think, Jackie had mentioned that this evening. So we'll look at that extra oil. And that might be something that we do at the end of this month, because we're wrapping up the classes at the end of this month. I think we have like 3 or 4 more left. And then we'll be done, at least for the summer. So we'll see what happens come fall. That's about right. I like a little bit more acidity. I'm going to add a touch more of the rice vinegar. We call that good. That's tasty. So if you have another sauce that's your favorite, feel free to use it. It's totally up to you to decide what it is you might like. I'm going to just set this to the side for the moment, and I'm going to grab my setup for the quick kimchi. I think we're okay on time, Cindy?
Yes, it's only 5:30.
What time are we supposed to be done? 6:30?
5:45.
Okay. All right. So I remember. I'm just teasing you. I know how I am. Once I get going. So I'm gonna just grab another bowl, and I ran across this. This were first time I saw it. It's called a kalo shredded, but it's basically it's like, they make that broccoli slaw type mixtures. They have all these different kinds of really nice mixes of vegetables today. And this is a carrot based one. So it's, it looks like it's white, but it's got the white carrot, the purple carrot, the orange carrot that we're so familiar with. So out of curiosity, I tried one, and it was really tasty. And I'm like, oh, we could pickle this, or we could make like a slaw, like kimchi version or style of slaw. So I apologize, I don't have a recipe for this. But follow along. And hopefully Jackie's gonna scold me later, I'm sure. But I'm just using that, and that's a nice mixture, like I said, of those 3 carrots. I did grab a little bit of cabbage. We went to pick up Napa cabbage, which is traditionally used, but they didn't have any, so I had a regular head of green head cabbage, and I took like a wedge off the side, and I'm gonna dice that up into, kind of medium-sized pieces, about like this. And I'm gonna mix that in. Now, keep in mind, we're not gonna ferment this or anything. It's almost really more like a salad. There are green lettuce leaves in the house.
Okay, as you're smooshing up, Marilyn has a question. What is samba chili sauce?
Sambal. Yeah, well, you could use the Korean paste one as well, sambal. We use a lot of different ones here, sriracha, sambal, whatnot. It's actually a brand, and it's not super spicy. It's got the flakes or the seeds in it, which is one of the things that I kind of like about it. Vinegar, sugar, like all of your hot sauces are basically the same. In terms of the categories of ingredients, it's just different levels of them, and then heat from the pepper. So this is a popular brand, Rooster brand, I think, or whatever. But you can find it at the supermarket, super popular Vietnamese cuisine or cross-cultural. Tabasco in this would be nice as well. I mean, it's totally up to you what it is that you'd like to put in there to give you a little bit of heat if you want the heat. If not, just leave it out. So I'm going to add some raw onion. I know Alice will be mad, but I like a little bit of that. And I don't want them too big so you get overwhelmed. So I'm going to split this piece in half and then just come back and cut it really thin.
Carla wants to know, for the dipping sauce, if you bought a similar sauce, what would it be called? Korean sauce?
Ooh, yeah, that's a great question. They probably have that. Hey, Carla. And I looked at dipping sauces and I looked at marinades. So you can find something, honestly, if you read the label, that encompasses pretty much all of the ingredients that we had in that original marinade in a pre-made fashion. Same thing with the hot sauce. So I couldn't really say what names you might find or brands, but there's just, like I said, so many out there today, it's crazy. But take a look, read the label, that's your best bet to try to find something that matches. Alice said gyoza pot sticker sauce is similar. So you can check that out for a dipping sauce, but it doesn't have the heat in it. So you would just have to add your heat if you wanted that heat. So a little garlic, a little bit of sugar. I'm going to put both, actually, the dry and the paste. And then the key, let's go crazy, add a little bit extra. The key for the umami or the flavors that really come through is a little patis or fish or squid sauce. You may or may not like this. You may or may not use this. We've used it quite a bit. I think we did it with our Thai cuisine. But it is sort of one of those love-hate things. Fish sauce can tend to be a little bit smelly, but for a dish like this, it's almost necessary. And normally I would get in here with my hands and like smush it around because we have really coarse, strong vegetables. The carrots will hold up to me squeezing them. The cabbage would hold up to me squeezing them as well. But I don't want to get my hands dirty during the show because I don't have a sink here. I'm going to add a touch, just a teeny touch of oil and a little pinch of that seasoning of ours. So this I would normally let set for overnight, ideally. But if you're wringing it and getting the juices flowing and pulling the liquids out of the onion, out of the carrots, out of the cabbage, then you could probably serve it and mix it for 5 or so minutes and then chill it for about an hour and it'd be fine. So it's almost like a little salad. It just has all of the flavors of kimchi. You'll just be missing that sort of fermented, really wet texture to it.
Okay, Marcy is asking to please repeat the ingredients for the quick pickling.
For the quick kimchi. Sorry, that's why I don't ever eat during the show. So we've got the slaw mix, and that can be the broccoli slaw, but in this case, it's a carrot slaw mix. So we've got cabbage. It could be Napa, it could be regular green, whatever cabbage you like. You've got the chili paste. I put in some of the chili flakes as well. Garlic, a touch of oil. And are you typing that down? Oh, Alice is going through for us. And that was it. A little bit of the seasoning. And you can see the color starting to come through. I could actually add the rest of this, I think. I got about 6 minutes. And that would be good to go. So get that incorporated really well. But, you know, like I always say, try not to get too hung up on ingredients. I bet everyone could go to the refrigerator tonight and find the ingredients they would need to make their own quick kimchi. This could be, it could have mango in it if you had mango, especially if it were slightly underripe. Like a green mango would be really nice. It's not seasoned right now, but that would be fine. Romaine hearts, they wouldn't hold up as long as your cabbage would, but the flavor would be great and it would be even quicker. You can see that color start to come through. And the thing I like about this is the carrots, the white carrots, they almost look like the bean sprouts that you find in a lot of the traditional side dishes in Korean restaurants. Yet they'll hold their texture a little bit better. So, plus I'm not a huge fan of the bean sprout. Yeah, they're all right. It'll taste a little dirty to me, like dirt. So I don't want to offend any bean sprout farmers. So for the bean sprout lobby. So I hope you guys enjoy. So that's done. I've got a little bit of greens here to put on the plate. So all I'm going to do is just take, this is just some red lettuce from the North Shore. I'm going to put it on because sometimes I like to take a little bit of the quick kimchi or regular kimchi or whatever and wrap it up in a piece of lettuce and eat it with a little sliver of meat jun, or even by itself, it works out great. So a little bit of that on the edge of the plate. The dipping sauce vessel that I chose is a little too big, but that's okay. And I'm going to add a little bit of this onto the side.
So Sandra wants to know, as you're plating this, where did you find a carrot slaw with mixed colored carrots?
Steve picked that up. That's a great question. I can look at the name of it. You can look at it online. Cal Organic Farms. Yeah, oh, I'm not supposed to promote companies, but Color Shred, it's called. So, I mean, you can't even keep up today with all of the new interesting things that are coming out on the produce side, on the sauce side, the meat side. There's just a lot of stuff going on. So this is a little cooler. I mean, we're used to eating our plate lunches where it's sort of room temperature. For me, I kind of like it when it's hot. It's nice. So I would have had all of this prepared probably in advance or ready to go, and then done the meat jun and then put it right on the plate. But you can see we've got some decent color there. This, like I said, with chicken is an excellent technique. So you do the same thing with a seasoned chicken breast or chicken thigh. You go into the flour and you go into the egg, you go into the pan. Traditionally served with like lemon or capers and things like that. And then we just cut a couple little pieces. I'm going to eat one. Then we can see if it sticks. So it's not falling off. So if you do, make sure that your meat is nice and dry. Get a good coating of flour, not too thick, because a thick coating of flour could fall off as well. And then the egg will stick to that into the pan. You shouldn't have any trouble with it falling off of your meat. And then I'm just going to slice all these up. The marinade comes through. And it's up to you to decide, you know, what a portion size is and what kind of cuts and slices you want to do. But usually just little bite-sized pieces tend to work. I'm just slicing those up. That would be enough for a couple people. So like I said, I like to make sure that it's the size that I can pick a little piece of the meat tuna, put it with some of the kimchi slaw or whatever it is that I'm making, and wrap it up in almost like a lettuce wrap in a way, and then eat it that way. But if that's not the way you want to eat it, there's no wrong way. Just do what you do and enjoy it. And also with dipping sauces, especially ones like this that have a little bit of oil in there, you can eliminate that if you want to, and that avoids adding extra oil, of course, to the meal itself. And if you're going to have that little bit of oil in there, I tend to have the spoon or something with it. And a lot of times I'll drizzle it over as opposed to dipping it. If you've got an oil-based sauce, this oil is going to float to the top. You're going to dip in your meat and it's going to get a lot of the oil on the outside. So it's up to you to monitor the amount that you're taking in, but you can easily give it a couple stirs like this and then just drizzle it over the piece that's on your plate. So that's it for this episode. Is that what this is? Is this an episode?
Well, I have a quick question.
Yep, go ahead.
Ingrid wants to know, what's that dark green thing on the plate? Lettuce?
Yep, this is a red butter lettuce. Great question, Ingrid. It might be Ingrid who's taking classes here. Hey, Ingrid, how's it? But you know, that could be a regular butter lettuce. It could be romaine. I mean, it's optional. You don't even have to have that. I just like to have a little bit of crisps. It almost makes it a salad, really. And we've talked about it before, how much I enjoy cold items on a plate with hot items. Some people don't like that. They don't want their food touching. They're looking at this going, no. But you get a crisp cold piece of lettuce with a little crisp bit of the slaw inside, and then the hot piece of meat jun, a dip, and it tastes delicious. So you get those textures and temperature differences. And yeah, it makes a nice surprise. Any other questions? Great question, Ingrid. Thanks.
No, just from Sandra saying thanks to Chef. And then Peggy is asking, will the recording and recipe be sent?
The recordings and recipes, we keep adding to that entry on the cooking calendar at the very top. So in about 3 days, you can look for it there. All the recordings and recipes are there from the last 2 years.
2 years. And thanks to Shar. I think is Shar the one that's like spent the time to do that?
Shar is doing it. So I'll put that in the chat, but please check it out. It's really a beautiful page.
It is. And really quick, I mean, it's only, this is only a 45-minute show, so this has only been in for 30 minutes. I know this plate's too big, but let me pull out the beef, and you'll see even in that 30-minute period, it's already taken on a little of the teriyaki color and darkening it up, whereas it was the nice red beef color. You could get away with 30 minutes would be fine, and you're still going to get some of that flavor. The trick is, remember, take towels, get that excess moisture off of there, so that when you're going into your flour, it's going to stick to the meat. Then the flour will stick to the egg, or the egg will stick to the flour. So it smells great. So thanks all for tuning in. Appreciate it very much as always. Any other questions? Oh, I got all night.
Thanks, Dan.
Come on, Cindy, let's stick around.
Wait,
I'm
I have a
I'm
quick
gonna
one.
end it.
Okay.
Wait, I have a quick one, probably to you, Jackie. Where
Yes.
is quotes there when you're talking about the videos?
So I put in the chat, and actually it's on every single opening slide. If you want to put your slide up there, Cindy. Our cooking calendar, it has all these classes listed, but the very top entry says recipes and videos. And if you click on there, you'll see the list of all the videos. You just click the link and all the recipes, and you click that link. So you can go back and look at some great shows that we've had.
And I think Hawaii is the model for AARP cooking shows. So good job to Shar and Jackie and Cindy and Lonnie and Dave and who else? Nobody else?
Chef Dan.
I'm just hanging
But
out.
yeah, so
Alice.
I hope you folks
Alice.
do check it out because that it really is great. I think in the future, we're putting everything on YouTube, but for right now, we've got, because of the recipes, we've got it together all on one site. So thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. Thanks, Chef Dan.
Happy Mother's Day, everyone.
Oh, Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day.
Take care. Aloha.